So I train a lot of people. A lot of them fit, can play basketball, can move their body, athletes. Nobody would I teach that right away. And so if I dump into that Instagram account or it comes over my feed and I got 30 seconds, I think it's subconsciously starting to change the way we think about movement and exercise and how to get to where we want. And now it creates this
Well, and I think,
confusion.
like I'll start out like we got to start with the posture, start with the feet. Nobody wants to watch that, right? So that's what they want to watch. I mean, I'm like, how fast can we make this happen? But you're not going to look like that, and you're probably going to get injured, and you're going to have all these other issues. Or by the way, you're probably going to have to take something like the Liver King guy. I'm not doing any kind of stimulants or steroids or whatever it might be. So again, that's the false hope. But it really keeps coming back to the progressions, the lifestyle. Can you repeat it? And I think in our world today, unfortunately, that people don't want to put in the work. And the other thing I've listened a lot lately is that it's all about the look versus there's so with mental health it is today. There's nothing better for mental health than moving our bodies. But why do we think that the benefit, really the true benefit of moving your body is not always the look? It's the feel. It's what it does for my mind. It creates all that stuff that helps us. But it's it gets back to the how hard can I go, how fast can I go, what do I want to look like, and it goes on and on and
on. Welcome back to Rest Eat Move podcast. We're gonna dive into the world of the internet, and I have a special guest who's not special. He's here every week, but he knows nothing about the internet. He doesn't have an Instagram. He spends very little time hearing some of the noise out there. And so I'm going to expose him to some of the noise. We're going to have a little bit of a dialogue on some of the noise and the trends. And the theme of this podcast is going to be the top 5 crazy things that are being said on the internet, all around health and well-being. And there's a lot more, but we boiled it down to 5. And we're going to play some videos so my dad, Chris, can kind of watch it live. And then we can talk about the maybe the things he agrees with and the things that he doesn't agree with. So the first one out of the top 5 is, and you're familiar with this because you get many people to ask you questions, reclaim your health with the animal-based diet or the carnivore diet. It's a trending topic. The Liver King was probably one of the most famous for that, but there's a lot of people that are following in the footsteps. What do you hear about this? What do you think about this? And when you first got in bodybuilding, was the carnivore diet a thing?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're talking about some of these things, and if you go way back in time, but you used to, whether it was Rocky, consuming a bunch of eggs, and then you're looking at they used to cut off a chicken's head and drink the blood, and I mean it was just, and then you'd eat, bulls, you would eat their testicles. I mean, all these, I mean, it goes way back in time. So, we just got to step back for a second and look at what have we learned over the multiple years in some of these things, and they just keep rearing their heads. And so when I hear some of this stuff, sometimes I'm like, number one, it's not sustainable. Number two, it's not true. And when you start taking macronutrients out of your diet, then you're going to have a macro problem. And so again, I don't know why we keep going back and keep spinning the wheel, but you can lose weight on doing almost anything, and people can look good short term. But again, you always ask the question: can you be healthy and look good if that's some of your goals? So again, that's the driver. I mean, when you look at Liver King and the guy's saying that he's not on any juice, I mean, and then it comes out he's on juice. I mean, that's just not. I mean, this is not real. So, and that's what I think sometimes I'm hearing more.
So let's watch this video. So this is a very popular gentleman, Carnivore MD. I like some of the things he says. He talks about getting rid of seed oils and getting the sun, hot and cold therapy, a lot of good stuff. But his main premise is this animal-based diet.
So an animal-based diet is organs and meat, the most nutrient-rich foods for humans that I've ever seen, prized by hunter-gatherers throughout our evolution, clearly prized today. Organs and meat for protein and nutrients, and some animal fats. Dairy, preferably raw dairy, as an animal food that is nutritious for humans and a source of calcium and other unique nutrients. Eggs, animal foods, and then a carbohydrate source for humans from fruit, and honey, which I believe to be the least toxic sources of carbohydrates. So an animal-based diet is, succinctly put, organs, meat, fruit, honey, raw dairy. It's kind of just a term.
So here's a question for you. Animal-based diet, fruit and honey. When did fruit and honey become an animal?
Yeah, I mean, when you select fruit and honey, and again, I think fruit and honey can be
I love fruit and honey.
Yeah, it can be amazingly healthy. So, and again, back to, am I going to eat organ meats all the time? Am I going to be, so again, you're thinking, is that what I need to do to look good? And I think
that's an MD. That's a doctor.
Yeah, and so now I'm the physician. I have a nice, physique. I look good. But
let me show you a couple more. So he's going to go through a grocery store here and tell you what he's going to buy.
Trader Joe's grocery haul, animal-based foods. Vegetables, nope. Grass-fed ribeyes, we got grass-fed ground beef, organic, pasture-raised, eggs. Those are the best eggs I can find at Trader Joe's. Let's see if I can find some raw cheese. Yep, got raw milk Gruyere, Grana Padano, and Parmigiano Reggiano, which are raw. Organic Fuji apples, organic dates, organic bananas, organic avocados, organic navel oranges. Definitely will make some juice out of those. Zucchini, it's not a vegetable, it's a fruit. Organic spaghetti squash. Squash is a fruit. Could throw this in the oven, cook it up. Sadly, Trader Joe's doesn't have raw milk, but they do have goat milk kefir. That's probably what I would do here. They've got a local, raw, unfiltered honey, meat, fruit, honey, raw dairy.
So the thing that stood out to me there is vegetables are bullshit is kind of his slogan. Kale's bullshit, vegetables are bullshit. What do you think of that trend?
Well, again, we're just selecting certain things. I can eat honey, I can eat fruit, but I can't eat vegetables. Again, common sense has to come in play a little bit here. You can't say that eating, well, you can, and obviously he says it, that you can't eat vegetables. I mean, a carrot's not good for you.
Yeah, saying his defense mechanisms in vegetables are very toxic. One of them being oxalates, causing kidney stones, and different other.
Oxalates aren't causing kidney stones. What's causing kidney stones is a terrible lifestyle, being dehydrated, the list goes on, and probably eating too much meat.
But that's the opposite of what we're hearing.
Right. So again, if you look
or no
at
mushrooms.
Meat, again, back to the three principles we teach is, back to the cell, the pH, and the source. And so you can shoot some holes through some of that stuff. So that's the challenge.
Let me play one more. So just a reminder.
I want people to get to a place of I choose to only eat meat, not I can only eat meat. My real thing is if you heal with this, you can help so many people heal that don't realize they're sick.
And that's like part of the reason I'm still looking and have been looking is because there's so many people that follow me and I'm like, the idea with the diet is you use this and then you reintroduce foods. And there's so many people who can't especially people who gravitate towards a lion diet. Those are the people that do that diet that can't reintroduce foods. And it's like, well, something's obviously wrong. You should be able to.
So there's another, again, there's others, but there's another woman who's very popular, Michaela Peterson. Her dad is Jordan Peterson, and she had a TED Talk and has talked about how she only eats beef, and it solved her autoimmune issue. And now Jordan Peterson, I think, only eats beef, and it solved his antidepressant or his depression and anxiety and all these things. So, without going too far down this hole, this is a very trendy, million views, millions of followers, people emailing me what do I think about this. Some of it I agree with. There are some contexts I agree with, like eating food from the source, like good animal product, fruits, vegetables, honey. These are all good things. But when we go down this crazy path of reclaim your health with animal-based diets and getting into the extreme of only eating animal products, liver, testicles, organ meats, you're taking a knife and you're chopping up these things and eating them right from the cutting board. It's too extreme.
Well, and again, back to, if you looked at everything we've seen so far, you got to step back and say, does this make any sense? And when you think about food, it's not just nutrients, but there's love in it, there's social, So I'm going to go out, I'm going to go to here, whatever. So now we create a lifestyle that we can't repeat. And number two, look at long term. These are just little tiny snippets of, for example, that young woman, she's not, I mean, and how old is she?
Yeah, she's young.
And she's been doing this for so long. So again, when we go back to really getting back to the clean eating, you're definitely going to see some changes no matter what you kind of do. But eventually over time, you're going to start seeing deficiencies. And so when you think about nutrition 101, it's what nutrients am I missing? So if I looked at some of this stuff here, you know, where's vitamin C come from if I'm eating meat? Where's it come from? If you look at many things like vitamin D or lipoic acid, or the list goes on and on and on. Omega-3 fats, you might get some of these omega-3 fats, but you might not. So it depends on what where you're at here. But eventually over time, you're going to start seeing deficiencies.
So this leads me to number 2. So number 1 was animal-based diets. Again, nothing. We both eat animal products. We try to get the highest quality, but we also have other foods in the equation.
Again, I like what you're saying is, for sure, if you're eating any animal, make it better, upgrade it as much as you can. But don't feel like that's the only thing you can eat, because again, if you're only eating meat, you're probably going to be a little bit more way over on the acidic side, which leads to many other problems, including inflammation long term.
So probably one of our least favorite influencers out there is Dr. Gundry. We think he says some good things, but there's so many polarizing things that he's trying to grab attention and confusing people. So watch this video from Dr. Gundry.
Beef eaters had a much higher incidence of breast cancer than chicken eaters. And once again, the difference between those two sources of protein actually comes down to the fact that chicken has Nu5AC and beef has Nu5GC. And the evidence is overwhelming, sorry, carnivore diets, that Nu5GC promotes inflammation, promotes an autoimmune attack on our blood vessels, and promotes cancer cell growth.
So this is why we're doing this podcast. So you got many people, some of them reputable, some of them are just famous for being a personality. And then you got the opposite. So number 2 on our list is the opposite of anything. And one of the things that I don't like about Gundry is he's going to say something opposite to what our belief is or whatever the trend is. And so he's a big fan of the ketogenic diet, but the way he says it is most people don't know how to do the ketogenic diet. So he's trying to say everyone else that's trying it, my way's the only way. He knows that carnivore diet is very popular right now. And so to get people's eyeballs, he's trying to debunk it in a way that sounds scientific, educated, well proven. And again, it's the opposite of number 1. In this case was you eat beef, you're going to get cancer.
Well, I think at the beginning you kind of opened up making fun of your dad that I'm not on the internet, but I do know
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. But I do know one thing. Anytime I've ever been exposed to the internet, he pops up. And so he's everywhere. And so when he's saying that you know, like, for example, I was in South Florida this past week. We had real orange juice, and we diluted it a little bit. Well, he'll say that, you know, that's poison. You can't drink orange juice. You know, you can't eat a banana if it's too, you know, if it's too ripe. So again, you can see some of the stuff is so confusing to people. If the worst thing you ate was a ripe banana, I think you're probably going to be okay.
I think you'd be above okay.
And if you're going to have some real fresh squeezed orange juice and maybe you dilute it a little bit, I got to tell you, that's probably not the worst thing you're going to put in the human body. So this is what makes everybody crazy. In fact, I was just speaking a couple weeks ago, and I got some of these questions that, can you eat this and that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know,
where are you hearing that? Yeah.
Where are you hearing all this stuff? So there's so much confusion. It just keeps spinning. And now with the internet the way it is, again, I'm not.
So I think one of the ways I kind of interpret is there's always going to be a middle. Unfortunately, our brain wants to take us to a completely crazy side of one direction or other. So you got eat plant-based only. You can only eat plant-based. And then you got the other camp that says only animal-based. And if you eat plant-based, it's cancer-causing. And the plant-based says if you eat animals, well, what about the middle? Because somebody's wrong, correct? They can't both be correct.
Yeah, we got to go back to some common sense. If you're eating nutrients from the source in a variety, you're probably not going to be wrong. And then number two, you're probably going to be having a plan that you can repeat and sustain over time.
That's a big deal, sustainability. So number three, this isn't new, but you see this over and over again. Kind of what we were talking about there is the ketogenic diet, trying to manipulate macronutrients, counting macronutrients. It's much more involved, but I say, we're still trying to hack. We're still trying to hack our diet. And I think you said it again, but it's worth mentioning. If you cut out a macronutrient, in the case of ketogenic, you're going to cut out carbohydrates. You are going to have a macro problem. And the truth of it is it's very hard to sustain. So maybe in the short run, you cut out carbohydrates, you lose weight because they hold on to water, and next thing you know, you've lost weight. But you've missed maybe some antioxidants, some fiber, some other properties, including no one's talked about what carbohydrates can do for serotonin and boost the neurotransmitter serotonin. So ketogenic diet continues to be a trend that we see, and I think it's for the wrong reason of trying to hack and quick fix a poor diet. And I think one of the things it does just automatically is if you go from a processed bad diet to a ketogenic diet, kind of the pseudo effect is you are eating cleaner. But the problem we see is maybe short term you get better, but long term you're missing nutrients.
Well, and I think the other thing too, you kind of hit it right, short term, but it's always about how you develop a nutritional plan that's, as we just talked, repeatable, sustainable, but it doesn't happen overnight. The problem is that you start going from one area that you're, way over here to way over here, and you start seeing some amazing results, and you're like, of course you're going to see some amazing results. But that's not, again, that's a quick fix. That's not going to be long term. But I think the biggest challenge I see more and more is that they try to develop a plan that is so extreme, you're going to see these changes instantly. So, for example, when I was competing in bodybuilding for many, many years, a big way for people to get ready to get on stage was they would do carb depleting. So they would completely deplete their carbs. Carbs hold water, blah, blah, blah. And then as they got ready for contests, then they would carb load. So now their muscles look fuller, and the list goes on, and they get up on stage. And many of the bodybuilders, again, you had to time it just right. And even if you timed it just right, you still might not look the way you wanted to do. And that was made me think that, why would I want to change? I've been really after this thing for about 16 weeks, and now I'm gonna roll the dice and try to time this as perfect now how the body works. And I think that's what we're seeing more today. We're trying to do this, going from this level to this level, and you think you're going to get this result. But the bottom line at the end of the day is, what do you really want? Are you really trying to get losing weight, or are you trying to have a better look, which I guess most of these are looking for? But why do we not think we can have kind of both? And I think that's a
good point. So number 4 is, and this is a big deal, shirt off, great looking, good physiques, pretty, and it's attractive to watch it. It's attention grabbing. And one of the things it is it's pretty much entertainment. So let me show you a couple videos here. The first one is going to be,
come check this.
So you see this a lot. Random movements thrown together, looks new, looks interesting. Oh my gosh, it's focusing on my hips or my shoulders or whatever body part, my glutes. But it's random. Nice music, pretty woman. And next thing you know, you see people trying these movements in the gym with very little body awareness, no education of what it's really doing. That's new. That never existed in your 35 plus years of personal training, where people can get so quickly different movement. Now, I'm all for moving the body, but I think you said this the other day, you see these movements in the gym, and like, where did you learn that?
And where's the progressions? So you take somebody, I remember one of my buddies was doing P90X and we're playing golf one day, and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, I can't even move my neck. I go, what do you mean you can't move your neck? He goes, I just started doing the P90X. What are you doing P90X? And P90X is not a bad thing, but there was no
progression.
Like, I just watched it. I'm going to do it. No. So when you see some of these things out there, like, where's the beginning? What's the goal? How do we put this all together? And I think that's what I just saw is like.
Let me show you a couple more. So this is very common. This is a day in the life type of a video, very common, especially with women.
Was the juiciest glute pump I have had in a while, you guys, and I'm gonna show you how I got it. We started off with our pre-workout cocktail. I was using mango oxyshred and L-carnitine, and I guess I was so excited because it literally just spilled everywhere. At least it didn't get on my outfit. I finished that and got everything together. Energy was good, so I knew I was gonna have a good workout. Trust me when I tell you, do not skip your stretches and warm-ups. Do not. Next, we are going into RDLs first. Now, y'all, when I tell you I did 3 to 4 sets and AMRAPed every single set. That's probably why I'm gonna be so sore for the next 2 to 3 business days. Y'all, the way my dumbbell literally bounced back. Next, we are going into reverse lunges. This is one of my favorite exercises. We were literally only 3 exercises in, and I was so exhausted. Next, we are going into Bulgarians. Y'all, I have such a love and hate relationship with these, but this is the only type of pain I love. We are going into medius.
So we watched that earlier, and that was the first time you saw it. Hundreds of thousands of views of that video and similar types of video, and they're interesting. It's like, oh, okay, day in a life. What do you notice in those? Because this is new to you. You don't see these.
Well, if I was training that person, I would go, number one, what's your posture? Your head's almost way down there. So now you're creating a nervous system adaptation that's going to be something that's going to, and again, super young, but over time, that's going to cause some major problems.
So her neck was
way forward. Again, the head weighs 6 to 8 pounds. I mean, that looked like a disaster. Now, again, she can get away with anything at her age, but over time, she's going to have other challenges.
So that's a day in the life. One of the things that we see there is, I don't know her background, but these are such micro clips, and it's about look. So she's talking about glutes. She's got nice glutes, but that's not really something that someone that doesn't have glutes just doing that is going to get them the results there. The pre-workout, the clothes, and then the other thing that stood out to me, we briefly talked about this, is she abbreviated rear deadlift, RDL. And we're seeing this over and over and over again because it's such a common movement because it focuses on the what?
On the glutes.
On the glutes. Mm-hmm. And the glutes are the new thing. This is one of the drivers for many women in the gym to try to get that look of the glutes. I've been training a long time. You've been training a long time. I've never abbreviated rear deadlift. And now it's so trendy that it has an abbreviation.
Yeah, when you said that to me, I have no clue what you're asking.
And you've been doing this for...
Yeah. It was back in the day we used to...
The dinosaur doesn't understand what the internet's saying.
The Arnold curl. Arnold Schwarzenegger named the Arnold curl. Like, what you're going to name a curl after you? So, yeah, you can kind of see how this starts to roll. Like, okay, for the guys, they wanted to have the pecs and the biceps. And so, yeah, so get back to, again, train your glutes, train your hamstrings, train your quads, train your core, train the whole body. But, again, we're trying to
look a certain way. One last thing, and I like these guys.
I just wanna rock. I just wanna rock. Body out of ya. Shorty got that body out of ya. Hit it once.
Very motivating. I want to do that movement. I want to look that way. I want to get in there. They got millions of followers. The challenge with that I see is there's a reason their shirt's off. And I'm not dogging them because I think they should flaunt that. But I think what it makes everyone else that kind of uses that as like, okay, I got to do that workout to look that way. It's giving false hope because those guys, I think, genetically are gifted, number one. Number two, there's no progression to any of those movements. So I train a lot of people. A lot of them fit, can play basketball, can move their body, athletes. Nobody would I teach that right away. And so if I dump into that Instagram account or it comes over my feed and I got 30 seconds, I think it's subconsciously starting to change the way we think about movement and exercise and how to get to where we want. And now it creates this confusion.
And I think, you've kind of coached me along the way, and you were Rashawn, that you can't start out so slow. Like I start out like we got to start with the posture, start with the feet. Nobody wants to watch that, right? So that's what they want to watch. I'm like, how fast can we make this happen? But you're not going to look like that, and you're probably going to get injured, and you're going to have all these other issues. Or by the way, you're probably going to have to take something like the Liver King guy. I'm not doing any kind of stimulants or steroids or whatever it might be. So again, that's the false hope. But it really keeps coming back to the progressions, the lifestyle. Can you repeat it? And I think in our world today, unfortunately, that people don't want to put in the work. And the other thing I've listened a lot lately is that it's all about the look versus there's so with mental health it is today. There's nothing better for mental health than moving our bodies. But why do we think that the benefit, really the true benefit of moving your body is not always the look? It's the feel. It's what it does for my mind. It creates all that stuff that helps us. But it's it gets back to the how hard can I go? How fast can I go? What do I want to look like? And it goes on and on and on.
So the last one is cold therapy, and we both highly believe in cold therapy. We've been both using a cold plunge at our fitness facility, hot and cold showers for, you much longer, but I'm talking 20 plus years for me, and I'm only 36, and you've been using it for longer than that. You see this on every single commercial podcast. There's at-home cold therapy, DIY cold therapy, the cryotherapy where you're actually going in these sub-negative 100 with the gloves. And what's your take on this new explosion of hot and cold therapy, and why is it so extreme?
Well, let's go back in time. It's not new.
Right. So
I sometimes I'm like, that's not new. You talk about rice. Anytime anybody injures himself, it's elevation. It's ice. It's the whole thing. So we have to understand how hot and cold work. So that's number one. It's not new. Number two is, for many people are paying lots of money to go to sit in a cold. The key is understanding and what's the value of it. We're really the big thing, I think, is it really helps to the immune system. So again, you're driving blood to the organs, you're driving blood to the outer part of the body. So, the hot and cold, there's so many things it does hormonally, energetic, there's so many wonderful benefits of hot and cold therapy. That's number one. The benefits are hands down, we know that. Number two is, how do you do it? And so now if you think, well, you got to do this and this, it's like anything else. It's acclimation. So one of the things people ask me about, how do you do it? Well, it's not like it's perfect, but you're going to start out with a warm shower, and then you're going to go to a cool shower, and you're going to go back to a warm shower and back to a cool shower. And eventually you start acclimating. And if you do have access to a cold plunge or a cold bath or things like that, that's another level. But we just jump right into it, and if people can't sit in the cold plunge for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, then they're weak mentally or whatever. No, it's an acclimation. And again, I don't know about you, but in the middle of the winter here in Michigan, I don't necessarily want to jump right into an ice bath.
Well, you're mentally weak.
I'm mentally weak. So we have to understand there's really some huge benefits to it. Like when I'm traveling and I need to get more energy and to feel better, I'm definitely doing a hot and cold shower. Is it perfect? No. But it's a way that I can implement it in my lifestyle. So number one, the benefits there, it's been going on for a long time, and it needs to be like anything else. It needs to be a progression.
But I think the thing that I hear is, like, if you're not doing it, well, you're not regulating your nervous system. You're not going to be able to handle stress because you're not given that stress. So I think it makes people feel like, oh, I need to do this. You don't need to do this. It can be a tool. It doesn't have to be the only tool, but when you start to gain the popularity, the trend starts to increase. Now people say, well, I'm not training right because I don't have a cold plunge. I'm not doing the cold therapy. So just understanding there's always more options. It's just one option.
Well, and I think the other thing too, for those of you listening or watching, experiment with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be learned by trying things. Like when you go to the gym and you're experimenting, try it, and it's no different than hot and cold. Start out instead of, make your shower maybe extremely warm, and then you go gently to cool. But maybe next time you do a shower, it's not so hot anymore. It's a little bit cooler. And what you're going to know, it's like eating cleaner. The body's going to start reacting. You're going to be more aware of it. And now that's kind of the special sauce, is now my body's more aware of it, more in tune to it. And then I don't have to have such extremes to make these changes in my body.
If you can make it part of your ritual, it's part of my ritual. But I remember I went to the Scandinave spa in British Columbia, Whistler, and it's set up that way. And the Scandinave baths that's how you do it. You do hot, cold, stillness, and you repeat it over and over again. It's peaceful. It helps you regulate the nervous system. I'm not going to go to British Columbia every day, and so I try to do that. But I remember my mother-in-law telling me something with my first kid. I went to do a meditation certification, and she said, "What are you going to learn meditation? Like, the only meditation you're going to get for the next 4 or 5 years is sitting on the toilet." Like, it's not always practical. We got real life. And so I think the biggest mistake is the internet makes everything look so easy, so clean, so organized. We're going to have chaos. We're going to have variability. The snow might be outside and you don't want to go outside in your cold plunge, or maybe the pipes break and the temperature's off. That's what we're going through at our facility. The cold plunge is broke. So I think we got to step back and say, yes, so let's create some rituals. This can be one if you can sustain it, but if it's something that requires so much effort, so much work, there's probably a couple things before that you can do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we truly try to teach is building habits one step at a time. And so if you said, hey, one of the things I want to do is I really want to help calm my nervous system, then you start experimenting with hot and cold. Don't get crazy with it. Experiment with it. Don't make it so painful that you're not going to want to repeat it. Because if you make it so painful, I guarantee it. I see so many people when we go to the MAC to work out and they come in for the first time and they're so afraid of that cold plunge. And I said, well, you don't go from the shower in there. You got to come in the warm and then you go to the cold.
That's how it's designed.
Yeah, so it's designed that way. Like when we were in Alaska and they had the outdoor, hot springs, it comes in and it's like perfect. It's natural. It's not this way. But as you wade through as you get closer and closer to the middle, it gets hotter and hotter. That's where that's how they set it up. But it's coming out of the.
You don't start in the middle.
You don't start in the middle because the middle, you just are not ready for the middle. So they guide you like, hey, go over here, acclimate over here, and it's magical. And then it's the same thing when you get done. You're the same thing as you go back into the cold, and then you go into the stillness.
All right,
we don't live in Alaska or we don't live in British Columbia, and that's the challenge.
So as we wrap up, so here's the 5 that we kind of are saying watch out for. Number 1, animal-based diet only. Okay, there's more to the nutritional plan. Number 2, there's always going to be the opposite. So anything that is trending, there's going to be the opposite to debunk that, to try to grab noise. Number 3 is cutting out macronutrients, stuff like the keto. Watch out for just watching fitness, movement tips from people with their shirts off or good physiques, because sometimes, and most of the time, there's no experience, there's no track record. It's all about entertainment and looking good versus doing the right movements. And then number 5, being too extreme with some of these new things like hot and cold therapy. And as I kind of wrap up, kind of to play off the first one, there are a lot of smart people that can use scientific jargon, but at the end of the day, if people are eating kale or they're putting spinach in their smoothie, I think they're making really smart, good choices. But we're going to have to look out, because there's always going to be that person that's going to try to grab attention, because that's what we're all after, is grabbing attention. That's going to say things like kale is bullshit, and putting a spinach in your smoothie is an oxalate bomb. These are harmful for society, because at the end of the day, we're eating too much processed foods. We're not moving our body. We're overstimulated. We're running too fast. And if we can just start with some small steps, 35 years ago, I think we're doing some good things that weren't very exotic and crazy, but now we've gotten to this point where we look at the internet and say whatever's trending must be the right thing.
One of the things I think as you wrap this up, I completely agree. I mean, people have these beliefs, and a belief is a level of certainty, but, you know, the breathing was a big deal when COVID hit. That's fantastic, because when James Nestor comes out with a book about breathe, it's fantastic. It's awareness, but you don't need to read a 400-page book about breathing. You just need to make it simple and being aware of your breath. Number two is if you have a lot of stress and things and you need a little bit of hot and cold therapy or whatever, you're just creating this awareness, but the goal is how do you create a lifestyle that you can repeat over and over, and I think that's what's confusing.
Right.
Because there's so much out there, like what do I believe, not to believe? And I'll mention one last thing. I just got a call from a guy yesterday, and he had talked to me multiple times about getting his know your numbers. And I said, before you understand all this stuff, you need to get these numbers, homocysteine, CRP, testosterone, whatever it is, but get all these tests here because you have to understand your risk. So then he goes to see his doctor, and his doctor says, you know, your cholesterol a little high, but his cholesterol's in balance, it's all good. But he wants to put him on a statin med, so he gives him a calcium score. So now we got another test over here. He hasn't done homocysteine, CRP, he doesn't have any of these tests. Gets his calcium score back, and his doctor says, hey, here's a book I want you to read. And it's about a cardiologist that recommends a statin med for every human being on the planet. And I'm like, so he calls me up, and he goes, I'm so confused. And I said, I'm confused. So the key is on all this stuff today is we have to go back, a little bit of common sense, understand how to create a lifestyle that can repeat. And then, again, back to this internet thing, what we're talking about today, that there's so much out there that you and I sometimes are like, that's interesting. Is it doable? Is it repeatable? Whatever. Is there some validity to it? Some yes, some no. But that's the problem when you look at a 15-second, 30-second clip, that you're never going to get the full context of the entire message.
Yeah, so the take away a bunch of good positive things. The danger is sometimes the most attention-grabbing stuff is going to be exotic. It's going to be something that's putting what you believed on its head, and it grabs your attention. That's how we're designed. Our attention is going to go to things that are uncertain, new, attractive, and sometimes we have to limit those things and really go into ourselves and say, what are the couple things we have to do or that we're not doing, and create that lifestyle. So until next time, hopefully the big fella doesn't start getting on the internet, because these podcasts will start to be a lot different as he's exposed to this crazy world. But if you have any questions, reach out to us, info@ontargetliving.com. We'll see you again next time.